Limitations lie only in our minds. But if we use our imaginations, our possibilities become limitless. Jamie Paolinitti. It's a pleasure to start this auspicious occasion by heartily welcoming everybody. A very good morning and a warm welcome to one and all present here for this session of Virtual Academia Industry Innovative Series for the MBA Batch 2022. Christosandi School of Management provides its students with an opportunity to learn and how grow with new perspectives through its Academia Industry Innovative Series, popularly known as AIIS program. It provides the students with an opportunity to meet various personalities who are well versed and have a vast array of experience. I find immense pleasure in welcoming our Honorable Chief Guest and the eminent speaker of the day, Mahesh Srivatsava, the Country Manager and Vice President of Engineering at MScript, a Cardinal Health Company. We are really thankful to you, sir, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to address the first year MBA students of Christo Jayanti School of Management. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
I would like to welcome our beloved principal, Dr. Augustine George, for all his support and guidance. I welcome you, Father, in your absence. It's my honor to welcome Dr. Aloysius Edward, Dean, Faculty of Commerce and Management, for his commitment towards this institution and all the students. I welcome you, sir, in your absence. Next, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome Dr. M.K. Baby, Head, School of Management, who is constant supporter in all our academic endeavors. I welcome you, sir. It's my immense pleasure to welcome Professor Senbi Matthews, Director, Center of Employability and Corporate Relations, Krista Janti College. I welcome you, sir. Next, I would also like to welcome Dr.D.RAVINDRAN, the event coordinator for today's AIIS program, who is always supporting and motivating us to express our competence and talents. I welcome you, sir. Finally, I would like to welcome all the faculty members and my fellow Jayantians to this Academia Industry Innovative Series. I welcome you all once again. Thank you. I remain.
As we welcome you as well. Now, I call upon Moses Johnson, first year MBA, to introduce our guest.
When we pay attention, we don't spend on it. But what we achieve is worth spending on entire lifetime. Good morning to everyone. I'm Moses Johnson from School of Management. The resource person for today's Academia Industry Innovative Series conducted by School of Management is Mahesh Srivatsava. Sir, it's an immense pleasure to welcome you to this gathering. Mahesh Srivatsava is the country manager and vice president of engineering at MScripts, a Cardinal Health company that ranks 14 in Fortune 500 list of companies. He's a graduate from the prestigious Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore, and has held several leadership positions in Fortune 100 companies. At MScripts, Sir is responsible for defining the company's technology strategy to build customer-centric solutions that create value for its customers, the company, and its investors. We specialize in building teams and software products from the ground up to a highly competitive market spanning investment banks, higher education, and healthcare technology. He's a compassionate leader who brings top talents together across geographies to build high-performing teams. He was also part of the executive leadership team that led the acquisition of MScripts by Cardinal Health in April 2019. With hands of experience in corporate sector, let's invite Mahesh Srivastava to give us a glimpse of his corporate journey. Let's listen to his words. Over to you, sir. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the warm welcome from the whole college, and it's a true pleasure for me to interact with the students. It's my first engagement with Christo Jayanti, and I've heard a lot about this college over the years. So it's my true honor to be a part of this session and interact with all of you. So yeah, thanks for the warm introduction as well, and just walking through my career. I don't really have a presentation, but I would probably prefer speaking about what I've done through my career. So let me begin from where I started. So I'm an engineering graduate. I studied at College of Engineering, and I was an electronics and communication graduate from RV, and I joined a company named Salime Solutions back in 2002. So Salime Solutions then got acquired by several companies along the way, and finally got acquired by a large multinational named SunGuard Solutions. So that happened back in 2005. And somewhere down the line, I decided to pursue my education. So I decided to take a career break and go back and join the Indian Institute of Management. And I graduated as a with the general management. I didn't really specialize in any specific area, but I did pick a few subjects around corporate strategy, finance, and marketing. Those were some of the key focuses that I had during my MBA. When I was graduating from IIM Bangalore, Goldman Sachs decided to visit campus, and I had always heard about investment banks. So that was an area that I was very interested in. I was very interested to explore opportunities in an investment bank as well. And I joined Goldman Sachs back in 2010, 2011, sorry. And somewhere along the way, one of my first acquaintances with whom I started my career, my corporate journey, reached out to me and said, hey, I've got this company in Bangalore, and we aren't really able to become profitable, and we've been struggling in our corporate journey as well. And he wanted my help to come in and start setting up that organization in the right way. So I decided to join MScripts. This was in 2015. And slowly and steadily, we were a company that back in 2015, we had our finances were deep in red. And I think what all of you would know what it really means to join a loss-making company. But I looked at it as a challenge in my career, a challenge that brought in all the experience I had to actually turn this company around. And in 2018, July, we broke even as a company. We started becoming profitable, and then the next step was to ready it for acquisition, because that was the main reason I had joined this company. And the main reason my CEO, his name is Mark Cullen, he started up this company to actually eventually see an exit. So we started readying the company for acquisition, and things moved very quickly. And in April 2019, we were acquired by Cardinal Health, and now we are a Fortune 16 organization. So um, let me spend a minute talking about the business that we are into, and I'll probably get into some specifics as to what my lessons learned were through this whole corporate journey. So MScripts is in the healthcare or prescription management business. We help several large pharmacies engage with their patients in a meaningful manner. We have a lot of intelligence around data that we've built, lots of algorithms that we built to actually help with the patient engagement. And that's the way in which we're trying to ensure that patients stay on our platform. And obviously, several players in the whole market are actually benefiting from that solution. So as a part of your MBA, you might have heard about what it takes to be in a sweet spot of a business. So we are in the sweet spot of the business. So it's very hard for us to actually make a mistake and go wrong in terms of our profits. So which is what I saw back in 2015 when I joined this company. So um, we structured the organization brick by brick. We ensured that we had the right talent who we hired. We ensured that we had the right processes in place. We started focusing on the right markets, so that at times it's important to know what battles to pick, what markets to enter, what pharmacies to actually chase. And we were very, very selective about who we want to partner with. So we were very careful about the business. We are very careful about our brand positioning. What is it that we need to do to actually become profitable? We were obviously in the cost saving mode because we were bootstrapped for the longest time. We got Series A funding. Our Series B funding was rejected back in I think July 2015, if I remember the month right, Series B funding was rejected because the investors said that you first get profitable and then we'll talk about more funding. But then we changed our game plan. We tried to create, we saw revenue opportunities in several other ways, and we were able to slowly get in more money into the bank and finally get profitable in August 2018. So it's been an interesting journey, definitely a stressful journey, I would say, when you actually leave a fairly well settled job, which was for me, it was Goldman Sachs, and join MScripts and be a part of a loss making company just to kind of go through the thrill of making it profitable and finally exiting, having a good exit for the company. So it's been an interesting journey to actually go through that entire roller coaster ride of things. So there were days when I was extremely happy. There were days when I was extremely low as well in terms of what we were doing as a company, what was I doing as an individual as well. But I think what really kept me going was me being patient and very resilient to what really happened around me. So it was clearly the matter of being focused in my corporate life, which is why we were able to build this company, which is right now a high performing company. And right now we're looking at growing to about 600 people in Bangalore. So when I joined the company, we started off with about 55 people, but I decided to downsize the company. I decided to downsize it to 23. And December 2015, we wound up with 23 individuals. And at the time of exit, we exited with a 55 member organization. So it was a 55 member high performing organization, extremely a bunch of people who are highly driven and were delivering a lot of business value along the way. So that's how I built a high performing team. And now Cardinal's looking at replicating the similar success model with several other business lines in India. So that's a bit about the company. Now, let me, given that I'm going to be talking about my corporate journey, let me talk about a few things that would actually benefit you. So, I think the first aspect is about how do you translate or transfer yourself from campus to corporate. And you might have heard this in several forums, maybe read several internet articles about what it takes to get into corporates. You might have heard from your seniors, maybe your mentors, your professors as well. But let me give you my perspective. Now, first and foremost, when it comes to a campus, there is a lot of structured learning that goes into your curriculum. So there is a clearly defined course content, clearly defined set of subjects, and you have maybe exams, projects, assignments that you need to work on. But a corporate is a lot more disorganized in that way. So any company that you pick and any company that you graduate that you get selected into is going to make a lot of effort to ensure that you're able to transition, or what I would call soft land in the industry. So there are boot camps that are organized. There are various sessions, fireside chats, roundtable discussions that happen with you to get you comfortable with the company culture. So there's a lot of effort that goes into moving from an unstructured environment to something which is a lot more structured. From an individual standpoint, I'm quite certain that all of you would want to make the right first impression, and which is what would put you under a lot of pressure about how do I make the right impression? How do I impress my teammates? How do I impress my managers? How do I impress the senior leadership of the organization as well? But I would think that don't put yourself under any pressure. Just be yourself, and I'm sure that the best of you is going to come out when you are your true self. So I would think that that's one of the tips I would want to give you. So I actually have a few points that I'd want to cover. So and a few tips that I'd want to give. So in my opinion, what really helped me go through my entire corporate journey is to actually have the right attitude. So I was open to learn. I did not really have any preconceived ideas about how my role should be, but I was just trying to be this sponge which was trying to learn or absorb as much as I could. So my whole objective for the first few years was to learn. I was getting myself involved into various areas of the organization, trying to learn as much as I can about the product, meet people, I try to understand the business, get to play various roles in the company as well. So I never really said that a particular role is something I would not want to do, but I always had the attitude that I would want to try everything that I possibly could in the organization, and I was given opportunities along the way. So that helped me develop a lot more rounded understanding of the business and about the industry as well. And let me take a specific example. When you, a typical engineer who graduates from any of the premier colleges, premier engineering colleges, would automatically want to be a developer. And today, in today's industry, everybody wants to get into a data analytics field. But what I did was I was just open to what the organization had to offer. So I went through a structured boot camp. I was trained to be a developer, but I actually picked a QA role wherein I was actually into testing of the application. And I try to understand the application from that perspective, and I try to understand the architecture. So from there, I moved on to what we call release engineering, what you might have heard the buzzword in today's industry called DevOps. So I did that. It was called release engineering nearly 2 decades ago. From there, I went on to becoming a technology architect. I was selected into one of the technology teams of the company because I was able to add value at that level. Then I went on to asking my senior, saying that, hey, I want an opportunity where I can actually lead a whole team or lead a whole business. And I had this discussion and I gave people confidence that I can actually do it. And when I completed about 3 years with the company, I was given an opportunity to start off a new team working with a British customer, and I was all alone on this flight to UK, trying to build that relationship with that customer, and it was completely unknown to me. So, but I think the bit that is really important is you should be able to work with unknowns. You should be able to adapt yourself with unknowns as well. And soon, in about 2 or 3 years' time, that particular British customer became one of our biggest business lines for SunGuard. So it became one of the verticals, what we call public sector in SunGuard. So if you look at public sector, it actually got acquired by a company named Capita, I guess, right? Recently, it's got acquired by Capita Systems. And that was one of the businesses I had built in India. So again, my need to study was more driven from my own personal focus. I love to study. I love to engage with students. I love to keep reading. So that's a habit I've never stopped through my career. So which is why I went to do my MBA. So I think the most important aspect that I would think is to develop the right attitude to be able to survive the pressure of the industry. The second tip I would want to give you is to limit your expectations. So it's not necessary that what you really want out of your particular role is exactly what you would get. The pandemic has shaped the industry in a way that we have never seen before. So the pandemic has eroded several companies, eroded several opportunities, while there have been several new opportunities that have come up. So what is really important that you keep your expectations limited. Obviously, no role, no company, no opportunity is bad, but I think you should start your career somewhere in an area where you think you can add value and grow your career from there. So don't expect that perfect role, perfect opportunity on day one, but you need to work towards it. It may take several years to get there, but stay focused and you'll definitely get there. Definitely, the third tip I want to give is to focus on your first impression. Don't put yourself under a lot of pressure to do this though, but ensure that you appear polished. Ensure that you are you listen more than you speak because you're supposed to absorb more as a part of your initial years of being in the corporate. And I think that's very important, that people look at you as a person who's receptive to ideas, who's willing to make changes and even drive changes. So having that first impression, being polite, being a lot more cognizant of the environment that you're in is exactly what a lot of corporates would require. You don't really need to overdo this. So be yourself, and as I said a little earlier, your true self is going to bring out the best in you. So stay focused only on that. The next tip I'll give you, and I think this is something that a lot of students would really not know at the earlier years of their corporate career, is to build relationships, build good, cordial relationships with everybody who you work with, because you never know when you may want to come back and revisit or meet some of those people again. So if you look at my career, the relationship I built in my first company, in the first year of my existence, is what has actually got me several other opportunities that I would really want to talk more about, what I really feel happy about. So my first relationship with a person named Mark Cullen, who is a person who also built Salime Solutions back in 1999, and the India development head at that point in time. They are the people who I've made some very strong, kept some very strong relationships with. Even today, they are one of my best mentors. And Mark Cullen himself had called me in 2015 to actually come back and take a look at his company, because we were in touch and he had heard a lot more good things about me over time. And I think that relationship actually helped me get the opportunity that I'm really happy about being in today. So keep those relationships. You never know when any of those relationships will come back and help you in your career. And I do have a real example where that's really helped me be a lot more successful in my career. The next tip is about exploring the organization's culture. So you've got to be open about the organization's culture. A lot of companies have got an open environment, an open door policy, an environment or a culture where they actually cherish teamwork as a part of their day to day. So keep you should explore the company's culture and understand what's it that really works. So if I talk about the Cardinal Health culture or the M-Scripts culture that we have in India, or maybe even globally, we have a more entrepreneurial mindset. We have a culture where we empower team members to actually drive a lot of outcomes for the business. We believe in teamwork. We have an open door policy, and there's a lot of respect that happens between team members as well. So, as an example, while I do head the organization here in India, I do value the inputs that come across all levels. You'll find several people who are trying to set up meetings with me, and I do meet them, give them career advice, I do mentor them in their journey with the company as well. But I think one of the main aspects that is really important, and what I think we pride ourselves on is the mutual respect that we have for each other. So I think that's one of the key elements that has ensured that we are successful as an organization, and that's one of the key elements that's also helped us build a high performing culture. So the last tip that I want to talk about is about managing work stress. Now, you must have heard about work-life balance, and that being a very important aspect that a lot of people look for. But I would think that work-life integration is what we should work with. So there is no perfect thing called work-life balance. In the pandemic, with all of us working from home, our professional life and personal life has somewhere got mixed up, and we should definitely try to keep them separate to the best of our extent. But I think what's important is to have some sort of work-life integration where you try to find a balance all by yourself. So the company is probably not going to, none of the companies are going to help you achieve that. But I think trying to ensure that you're able to balance things as an individual is what is really expected out of you. So one of the best ways for you to manage work stress is one, define timelines, define your day, get organized when you start off your day. So what I typically do in the morning is I quickly look at all my emails that have come overnight. I look at my calendar to see what meetings are lined up for me for the day. I try to focus on what's essential versus non-essential for the first part of my day, and then look at focusing on everything else a little later in the afternoon. And I do exercise a lot. I do focus on my own fitness, because one thing I've realized is that if I'm not fit as an individual, there is no way in which my decisions will also be fit in a positive way. So that's something that I keep focused on, and I do give myself to stay fit. I give myself a lot of time to stay fit. So I'm an avid cyclist. So you'll find me cycling either early in the morning or maybe on weekends in different parts of Bangalore. So sometime if you decide to bump into me, you can actually find me somewhere around Bangalore when I'm cycling. So I think that's something that I have a lot of interest in, and I do feel that that's one way to keep myself mentally fit while I'm focused on a high pressure job. So that in a nutshell is are some of the tips that I want to give all of you. I know I took a greater part of the discussion, 30 minutes or approximately 30 minutes to talk about my experience and some of the tips that I would want to give all of you while you transition from a campus to a corporate. With that, I'll probably open up for questions and maybe an interactive discussion, but anything that you may want to know about me, anything that kept me going, some of the low moments, some of the high moments, anything that you may want to know about me.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your valuable thoughts and experiences. Now the floor is open for questions. You can either post your questions in the chat box or else you can just unmute and ask the questions.
The first question is always the hardest.
Please post your questions in the chat box.
So let me ask you a question, all of you a question. What's your number one apprehension about campus placements? What's the one thing that you would really want to achieve? What's the one thing that gets you a little worried?
Good morning, sir. This is Raksha here from.
Hi, Raksha.
Yeah, sir. So answering your question, I think the one thing that would get me worried is whether, like, what I say become too much. Like I want to make a good, like, I think it's for all of us. We want to make a good first impression, but we don't know what is too much or what is too less. So I think that would be another thing. Like, what if we said too much, and that would be the reason we are not getting into the company, something like that.
As a part of the interview process, is that what
Yes,
you're
yes,
referring to?
yes.
Okay, great. Okay, that's a fair question. I think I had a similar mindset when I was interviewing for my first job. I would think that don't get too detailed, don't get stuck up into explaining a story and justifying what you did and why you did. The facts are the facts. So as long as you're able to present yourself in a structured manner, that is what's going to excite people who come to your campus for recruitment. I think the structure of thought, your thought process, and areas where you have shown some sort of innovation, willingness to learn, is what everyone's looking for. So there's nothing like saying too much, but don't get into too much of detail unless you're asked to get into it. So usually, if I tell you about a typical structure of an interview, the interview would first want to understand the breadth of your profile and then get into the depth. So if you get into the depth when they ask you for the breadth, it'll seem like you've spoken a little too much. but you may want to just touch upon how you have worked on various things in your career. And if somebody on the other side of the interview table asks you about specifics, that's when you get into the details. So you might want to kind of navigate that conversation. Obviously, practice. You may want to do some mock interviews to get through that, just to ensure that you structure your conversation in the right manner. So I think the mock interview is going to help you there.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, sir. So my
Yeah.
name is Andrews. So I wanted to ask you one thing. Like, so when I think about the future right now, the one thing what always strikes me when I start a company, or when I go to when I join a company or when I start a company, the first thing comes to my mind is how much money can I make? That's the first thing will come, because
Right.
as being an Indian, we'll think, okay, first salary we have to give it as tradition, we have to give some to our family and everything. Then after that, you're like, you have to keep saving. So with that general notion in mind, rather than doing business, you'll have a lot of things in the mind saying, how can I make money more than my capability? Starting will be like the company will offer 23,000. Then from there, the main goal will be, okay, I need to get a raise, I need to get a raise, I need to get a raise. As you said, so through your experience, when it's a company,
Right.
go beyond break even point. So, sir, like, how can one challenge that mindset, and how can one go beyond that mindset and understand the difference? Because to overcome that thought is a bit hard, sir.
Sure. So money is never enough, right? I think that's the first thing. So every year, every phase of your life, you're going to see a different need for money in your life. So I would say that nothing is it's never enough, right? So, but I would think that the way you should focus, at least the first few years of your career, is focus on learning. So I keep telling everyone the first 5 to 8 years of your career is where you learn the maximum. So focus on learning to start with, and definitely the money will follow. So again, if I look at my career graph, yes, I did start with a lower compensation package, but I think that when I focused on learning, the money kept following me. So I would think that Andrews, don't get bogged down with looking at compensation at the beginning. Definitely look at a compensation which you're comfortable with, but I don't think that should be the primary focus. The primary focus should be on the role. The primary focus should be the opportunity for you to learn a lot more. So have that as a focus, and money will follow. There will never be a time where money is sufficient, right? So if you look at that as your primary perspective, you'll always be unhappy. So focus on learning, and everything else will follow.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Great question, Andrew, and I appreciate you being open and honest about that.
Thank you, sir.
What's the one thing all of you look forward to from the first company that you would want to join?
Good morning, sir.
Hi, Mary.
I'm Mary Margaret. So, sir, I always have this doubt. Why do we like it's always in my head if we have to choose the brand name, or is it fine with going up with the startups? Because maybe startups will pay the same amount, but still there is this huge uncertainty that if it's a brand name, if it's a brand which everybody knows, we get that exposure. And what if it's a startup and we will not get the same, or maybe it will stop at some time? That kind of uncertainty, how to overcome that, sir?
Is your question or uncertainty about choosing a startup versus a larger organization?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so let me give you my perspective on this, right? So startups are definitely risky, but the amount of learning that you would have is a lot. So you actually learn very quickly, and you learn a lot very quickly as a part of a startup. which means you actually get, and the reason that that's the case is you get exposure towards multiple roles while being in a startup. However, being in a larger organization, you probably start off with one particular role, and you're allowed to move out of that team, say maybe only after 12 months or 18 months. That's typically the way larger organizations go. So your opportunity to learn across different teams and across different roles is limited. So that's the pros and cons about being in a startup versus a larger company. Uncertainty is there in all companies. I would say that I mean, and I think the pandemic has given us the biggest learning with uncertainty, because the main reason is with the pandemic, a lot of startups have closed. A lot of businesses, new businesses have spun up. Larger enterprises have had to change their business strategy as well. Companies that were conservative about the whole work from home philosophy now are trying to enable a lot of employees to work from home. And that's now going to become a competitive edge for various companies as well. So the changing landscape of a business brings in a lot of uncertainty, whether you're in a startup or otherwise. My only tip about choosing a startup is this: try to understand what business they are in. So try to understand what sort of prospects, what sort of growth that startup has is actually promising, or what are they talking about as a part of the entire process. Look at the background of the founders, and that's again very important, because there are a lot of startups where you have founders who are trying out things for the first time. They may not have the right credentials, and I'm sure there are startups where people with who actually get successful very quickly. But if you really want to be a little more risk averse and still join a startup, look at the business, look at the background of the founders. If they've been serial entrepreneurs, they probably know how to navigate the startup industry. So look at, I mean, I would think that maybe those are a couple of tips I would give you in terms of choosing a startup.
Thank you, thank you. So one more doubt adding on to that. So we are getting this experience certificate from the same startup comparison, just a comparison, and from a branded larger organization. So once we are showing it to, like, when you're going from moving from that job to another job, will the experience certificate will have the same weightage? Just a
It does. It does. So I don't think that's a difference between any company that you are with. What is actually going to help is the quality of the experience that you've gained while being in that company. So the certificate is basically a point in time which tells you that, okay, Mary served in this particular capacity with this particular organization until this particular date, right? So that's a point in time, but that does not reflect on your entire experience that you bring to the table. So if you're not looking at the experience, what you bring to the table, companies would value the quality of the experience. So the amount you've learned, the amount you've contributed along in your journey with being with that organization is something that would matter.
okay, okay. Got it. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Understood. Thank you.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
So this is Hariharanya.
Hi,
Uh,
Harry.
Sir, so once we get into corporate and we work for like one year or 1.5 year, and then we don't see any growth in our professional career. So if we get into a finance analyst position, usually I'm just talking out of experience because of my seniors. I've seen them. They work in corporate field for like over 2 years as a finance analyst or finance analyst 1 or 2, and later they don't see any scope in that company of growing more, even after working for 2 years. So what would be the best option, sir? So would it be good if you change to a much more better company, or is it like we wait for like 3 years? Because finance analyst positions, they say like we have to work for 2 years or 3 years to maintain the primary level of experience.
Sure. So I think in the current landscape, playing a shorter stint in companies is not looked at in a very positive way, Aryan. Let me tell you that. So you should be changing, let's say, 3 companies in 3 years. So that doesn't look nice in your profile because it shows a little bit of instability in terms of what you're trying to do. So I would think that the better option, the first option that you would try, I wouldn't say it's a better option. The first option that you should try is have a conversation within your company with your manager and say that I'm aspiring to get here or to a particular level. These are the areas that I'm not very happy with in my current role, but I would really want to pursue something of this sort, right? And you explain what that role actually is. And have that discussion with your team manager to start with, your team manager, or even maybe your BU head or one of the senior leaders in the firm. You may want to have that first discussion with. And it's always good in the industry today to have that open conversation about your career. Say that, okay, I want to get to, say, analyst 3, or I probably want to become a team lead in, say, 5 years. You may want to have that conversation with your leads or managers and have that open discussion as to where you see your career going. Now, even after if you have those conversations and if you don't see any opportunity to grow in your team, look for internal mobility within the organization. So several companies have got internal mobility where you can move across teams, across divisions as well. Especially with larger companies, you do have that as an opportunity. So explore that as a second step. And third step, if you don't find anything that suits your requirement, that's when you look out. But give your current organization a chance first before you start looking out. And I think nowadays, with the changing landscape, the changing industry, a lot of leads managers are open to having that career conversation with you while you are probably unhappy with your current role. And having that open conversation will actually open up several doors that you would have thought that are actually locked.
Thank you, sir. So adding on to what Mary asked, actually, like since once we get into a startup and the same thing happens, like we work for 1.5 year and we feel that we have to change. So will that have the same impact? Like since we are changing immediately after 1 year or 1.5 year to another company, say that is also a startup. And will that have the same impact, like you said?
May or may not be. It also depends on the circumstances, Hariharan. What I would think that the reason for change matters. Now, if the reason for change is, let's say, money or maybe title, I think that doesn't go down well in the industry. But if the reason for change is for a greater opportunity, maybe a skill that you have that's not being tapped, or maybe a larger career goal that you're pursuing, having a conversation around that and that being the reason for change is probably a better way to explain it. But just switching jobs for the sake of money or maybe title, or something which seems very transactional or transient, is something that a lot of companies don't appreciate.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
So I can give you an example, Hariharan. So I was with my first company for about 8 years. I was with the second company for about 4 years, and now I'm with a third company for close to 6 years. So I've spent a fair amount of time with each of these companies. I've learned a lot about the business, the culture. I've navigated within these organizations. And I didn't really look at switching jobs as a solution to maybe some of the career goals, some of the frustrations I may have had on the job. So I would think that switching a job should be the last option. Give the opportunity to your current company first. And if you don't see that opportunity, then you switch jobs. And when you're switching, you have to be clear about the reason why you're moving out. It should not just be money or something very trivial. It's got to be something which kind of aligns with what your true calling is, what you see as your overall career ambition. And I think if it's aligned with that and you're able to explain that, then it's fine.
Thank you so much, sir.
Good morning, sir. My name is Pooja Jain. I wanted to know if startups are recommended to freshers like more to freshers or experienced people? Because especially once people keep switching jobs, once they're well experienced, they do not really recommend or they don't look into startups to join. They actually look into larger organizations. So
Okay.
what do you recommend?
So I'm an example of choosing a startup with about 12 or 13 years of experience. So I wouldn't say it's a good decision or bad decision, but I think it depends on where you really see yourself going. So I had this whole thrill, or I wanted to take up a challenge of getting into a startup after several years of experience. And I'm happy that it's come out well. It turned out in my favor. But I would think that there's no real time to join a startup versus a larger company. I mean, who knows? You can be a founder yourself. You might stumble upon a business idea and you may want to start up something on your own. That's also an option.
Right, sir. But sir, when we move from a startup to a larger organization, I mean, sorry, from a larger organization to a startup, what are the aspects do you really look into except for their line of business?
So, so first of all, I think a larger company is very structured, and a startup is unstructured. So you may want to not assume that the processes and practices in the startup are already set. You may be needed to actually create those processes when you join the startup. So you may need to roll up your sleeves, get into the weeds, and start performing. So I think apart from understanding the line of business, you need to understand yourself as a person as to whether you're willing to roll up your sleeves, get into the weeds, and maybe start at a ground level and or probably operate at a strategic level. You should be able to adapt, and if you're adaptable, I think that's one of the main aspects that you should think about before you join a startup.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, sir, can I have the question with respect to the Puja's question continuation, sir?
Sure.
So there will be two suggestions. We faculty will be giving the two different perspectives. For example, when the student asks, sir, can I go? There is a two option in front of the student. He or she can go to the startup initiative, or it may be a new company. And another one, there is a big branded company. The question is, can we go into the startup first? Because in the startup we have individuality, we can become a manager, we can take all the decisions, we can learn a lot. So
Yeah.
one of the person will suggest, please learn a lot, you can become a boss. Then if you are moving to the next level big organization, means you can directly move to the higher position. Otherwise, you will be stuck on with the one or two roles, you might not be knowing many things. This is one perspective. Another perspective, if I am joining in the startup initially means I will be roaming around only with a small business, small area. But if you go to the company, as you said, I can learn how the corporate works. I learn how the system policy has to be created. I will be learning about different working environment. I know how to deal with the people. And more than that, as a fresher, I have a very good brand name. Because when I'm going for the first time job earlier, he suggested rather than the salary, please stick on with the brand name. Because when we are going for the next interview or when we are going for the bank, they will ask where you are from. So brand matters than your salary. This is the two perspectives. So according to your experience, can we go as a student, can they go into the company with a big organization with a very good brand name and acceptance with good products, learn, have experience, then they can go to the startup or they can start a startup or in reverse.
Sure. So I mean, there's no right answer for this, professor, and I'll tell you why I'm saying that. Now, if you start up, as you rightly said, if you start up with a smaller organization, and let's call that a startup for a second, the breadth of experience you get is something much more than what you can expect in a larger firm. That is clearly the way smaller organizations work. So you actually play multiple roles while being with that company, which is why you learn a lot more. In larger companies, you get to learn business processes, you get to integrate with a brand, you get to understand a culture, and you become the person who almost imbibes that culture as a part of the larger organization. Now, if you're moving to a startup at that point in time, it depends on the stage of evolution of that organization. So If a startup is still in the growth stage, I would call it still at the infancy stage of being a bootstrapped organization or maybe Series A or Series B, they will be looking at talent which is a lot more ambidextrous. So, wherein you can actually play multiple skills at the same time. So, that is where a startup may not look at a larger company to tap into talent. However, if a startup is now in this whole mode of transformation, where they're looking at now growing to a larger company, and maybe they feel that having some good business processes is required as a part of their growth, that's when they will tap into talent, which has got the skills like business process related, maybe somebody who's imbibed the culture and we can apply that in the startup. So I would say it depends on the evolution of the company. And again, I can take a real world example in my own career when back in 2015, when I decided to downsize the organization, look for talent. I was looking for talent in the smallest of companies. I was looking for talent in a company with less than 100 people. And that was the strategy that I used back in 2015. So I was tapping into our competitors like maybe Practo, Uber, and Swiggy, and so some of the smaller companies at that point in time, where I could actually get some talent who's done a lot of work. But now, when we are growing to about 600 people, I'm not looking at the same talent pool. I'm looking at talent from larger organizations who can come and add value and help me with this whole transformation of the company. So, moving from a larger organization to a smaller organization depends on the evolution of where that organization actually is. So, which is why you'll have to see what's the growth or the evolution cycle of that organization before you actually move into it.
Thank you, sir. So, as it is informed by the censor, we will be having time only up to 10 o'clock. So, thank you for extending the time, sir. So,
My
students,
pleasure.
any other last question? Okay, sir. So, I think everything is clear to them. So, can I move to the MC, sir?
Yeah, before we move to the MC,
Yes, sir.
me, Dr. M.K. Baby, Head School of Management, would like to just place on record our deep sense of gratitude to you for having consented to be the resource person today. I mean, the session, I should say, was simply superb. It was more like an elder brother helping younger brothers and sisters in getting themselves effectively transformed from campus to corporate with very friendly, with a very composed attitude. You have been advising your younger brothers and sisters as to how they have to actually plan their career and what are the important points which they have to stick on to if they have to come up with their career, like how it is important to have your dreams realistic, and even how it is important to choose the organization even if it pays you a lesser package, how it is important to be true to ourselves and not to be overstressed in the I mean in our eagerness to create a first impression, how it is important to build up good relationships, how it is important to imbibe and learn the culture of the corporate where you are fortunate to work with, and then how it is important to have a effective work-life integration rather than trying for an impossible work-life balance. It's some of the very important, extremely useful tips which you have given to our students, and I'm sure, and also the way probably they were so simple, and it was quite evident from the freedom that they enjoyed because of your motivation, that they were asking some questions which were actually haunting them, like how to start the career, how important it is to focus on salary, then what are the best practices as to like switching on jobs. You were very very helpful and extremely supportive in your interaction, and I feel extremely happy to listen to you. Rather, I was just now overhearing you talking to your younger brothers and sisters, and be an elderly man. I felt like the kind of sincerity with which you spoke was fabulous. You are an extremely good motivator, wonderful speaker, much over and above a very successful businessman. Thank you very much. This is just a note of appreciation from the School of Management. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor. And it was that was a great summary of the whole discussion. And I'm really happy that I was able to create that impression with the students, because I think it's very important for us as people who've been in the industry for so many years to be able to support others who are trying to make a mark. So I believe that that's where my calling is as of today. That's where I would really want to invest my time as well, as we look at being better people in the industry. So thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you for all your words of appreciation.
As you said, this was your first interaction, but I wish and pray that we stay constantly connected. We will definitely be my students would definitely be benefited with this kind of interactions, and I look forward to have more meaningful interactions in future too. Thank you very much for the goodwill that you have shown.
Absolutely. I would love to stay connected as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, HOD sir, for the wonderful concluding remarks. And once again, I thank you, Mahesh sir, so for your instant acceptance, and you made this Saturday very wonderful day and useful day for us and also for the students. Thank you, sir. Thanks for the coming. Now over to you, sir.
And thank you, Mahesh sir. Thank you, sir, for taking time and answering all questions so patiently. Now, I request all to please switch on their cameras for a group photo.
Dear students, please all of you switch on your videos for a few minutes.
Sir, you can.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all. Over to NC.
Is something to be thankful for. Now, I call upon Sam George to propose a formal vote of thanks.
Gratitude makes sense of your past, brings peace for today, and create a vision for tomorrow. Good morning to one and all virtual Academia Industrial Innovative Series. On behalf of School of Management, Christu Jayanti College, I would love to extend my gratitude to Mr. Mahesh Srivatsava, Country Manager and Vice President of Engineering at MScripts, who spared time from his busy schedule and gave us insight and made us realize the importance of developing a right sense of behavior and keeping ourselves with a low expectation just for the initial stages. And as rightly as our HOD sir said, we had a sibling connection. So thank you so much for spending time with us and giving us your insights.
My pleasure. Thank you.
I am happy to thank our Father Principal, Reverend Dr. Augustine George, for his constant support and encouragement in organizing these kind of programs. I thank Father in his absence. I would like to thank our beloved Dean, Faculty of Commerce and Management, Dr. Aloysius Edward, in his absence for his continuous support and encouragement. We thank you, sir. I am delighted to thank Dr. M.K. Baby, Head School of Management, for giving us guidance and creating an equal responsibility for all the students in learning and benefiting from these kind of programs and providing great support in all our endeavors. We thank you, sir. I would like to thank Professor Sen B. Matthews, Director, Center for Employability and Corporate Relations, for always connecting industry experts with us and making us corporate and society ready for to excel in all our unique talents and in our performances. Thank you, sir. My sincere gratitude to Dr. D. Ravindran, the faculty coordinator of this virtual Academia Industrial Innovative Series, for his efforts and motivation towards making this event a great success and giving us an opportunity to organize this session. We thank you, sir. I like to thank all the faculty members, and this time I would also like to thank Joel Paul and Raksha, students of Christu Jayanti College, for being with us and helping us with the back-end support. We thank you. And I would also like to thank all my fellow Jayantians for their constant support and coordination. Thanking you all once again, and I remain.
Thank you, Sam. Now we will have our Jayanti anthem.
There's knowledge in our minds, glorious and the make us sublime, make the mighty Lord be so high on the bedrock of faith, integrity of force, human dignity true, excellence we strive. Giant life and prosperity. Giant life and prosperity. Grace of joy and peace, strong hearts and minds, only not shackles as a beacon for the world, with a passion for our growth and a love for humankind, united and strong in excellence on the bedrock of faith, integrity of force, human dignity true, excellence we strive. Giant life and prosperity. Grace to giant life and prosperity.
Can you remain waiting as the dignitaries take leave? Thank you.
Thank you, Mahesh sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. It was a pleasure meeting all of you on a Saturday morning. Have a great day.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. You can sign off now.
Thank you. Bye.
Actually, sir, any instructions?